Welcome back to Short and Nerdy Nonfiction with Connlyn Sinclair. I'm your host, Connlyn Sinclair, author of horrible novels, all of which you can find on Amazon. So after watching this podcast, if you are actually interested in supporting me, go to Amazon, look up Connlyn Sinclair, and buy one of my terrible novellas or short story collections. It will be worth the money. I'm actually going to talk a little about writing today, about my start in writing and where I think the next big franchise is going to come from. I don't think I'm going to write the next big franchise, but I think the next big franchise is probably going to come from the place where I started. Before I got published, before my first book, Age of Travelers, got picked up by Alien Buddha Press, a lot of my writing was roleplay, specifically Tumblr roleplay. There are a lot of those of you who aren't Tumbly-poos and weren't on the roleplay side of Tumblr in the 2015, 2014, 2016 era. This is kind of an overview of what that world looked like. It was mostly anime. It was mostly anime crossover RP. The character I'm probably most associated with was I played Asuka Langley Soryu from Evangelion. Let's see, I played Asuka for years on a number of different roleplay blogs. I had a number of halfway decent AUs that I IRP'd her in, but mostly they were very simple alternate universes. I think the most popular thing I did was kind of a more generic mech pilot Asuka, who I played opposite a lot of Madoka Magica role players. There were a lot of Madoka Magica role players back then. I think Madoka Magica was probably the biggest fandom at the time. I also played her opposite some great Devilman RPers before I really even knew what Devilman was. I wouldn't get into Devilman until Cyborg 009 versus Devilman came out, and I bit the bullet and watched the OVA. But yeah, teenage me, high school me, who did a lot of Tumblr roleplay. Tumblr roleplay is long form, it's not script format like you find on Discord or Facebook before there was Tumblr. It's multi-paragraph, novella style, very literary type of role-playing, very different from any other role-playing system that I've done as a hobby. It is very similar to the kind of thing you do to construct an actual book. And while myself and many of my immediate friends in these cliques were doing either fandom OCs or canon characters, there were people who had crazy crossover universes. Several of my friends still operate these amazing crossover blogs that pull characters from all over, video games, anime, comic books, novels, alternate universes like you wouldn't believe. Take one character, completely rewrite their backstory so that they exist in a completely alternate franchise, then cross that over with another franchise, and then cross that over with another franchise, and you're getting Tumblr blogs that have lore that is completely incomprehensible unless you've followed them for years. I've seen people who have done, lore that is dependent on previous, role play threads that they've done that's built up to the point that characters become unrecognizable through years of the role play writer taking them and running with them. I certainly had that happen to me for a while. Trying to think briefly, my version of Asuka had a stand from the JoJo universe. I can't remember what it was. Considering I was really big into classic rock back then, it was probably a Cyndi Lauper reference, probably something like She's So Unusual. I don't remember a lot of this. I had the crossover verse with Madoka. I had the JoJo universe. I had a couple of things based around the movies, the manga, a lot of fusion verses. See, I'm not that creative. My role-playing experience was not on the level of some of these people. I mean, I've seen people who have crossover franchises like you wouldn't believe. I saw somebody once do a Hunger Games Code Geass Cthulhu crossover role-playing blog that really, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. It didn't use any canon characters. And the Hunger Games OC was a District 13 commando who was part of an intelligence service and got stranded in Mexico, and there were old gods. Crazy stuff. But particularly this generation that I was a part of who did these crazy crossover role-playing blogs that had these intricate fan fiction universes based around canon divergence and playing these crossover characters in a way that was accessible because you wanted new followers and new members of role-playing cliques to click with you right away. They couldn't, catch up for weeks trying to figure out your lore. You had to, get something going with people. And so it was easy to get into some of these fan universes because it was simple, because it's meant to be simple. A lot of them had a base universe. The base universe was usually either Madoka Magica or Danganronpa or Hunger Games or Dragon Ball Z or I think some people had Fallout-based universes. A lot of people had OCs that were specifically multiverse characters who started out in one universe and then ended up in another universe. Shifters were very popular. And a lot of it got very complicated, as I said, and yet it was still approachable. And I don't know what happened to a lot of these people who I used to have threads with. Threads is what you call a role play on Tumblr. And I don't know where they've gone or what they've done or if they're still writing. One person I am still in touch with from that time period who had really some great Doctor Who base universe crossover role play universes. The base universe was Doctor Who, and then it took in a lot of concepts from other anime that were popular at the time as things that existed within the Doctor Who universe. And I know this person isn't involved in creative endeavors anymore. She's a computer programmer now. She's a professional computer person. Not like Maid, she didn't become an indie author. And I think that's sad. I would have loved to have seen her, do the serials, file off the serial numbers of that universe, put it out there as a novella, put it out there as the new novel, the new hit thing. And at the moment, the new hit things are all Harry Potter fanfics and Hunger Game fanfics and Star Wars fanfics, and the serial numbers have been filed off, and the publishers are betting a lot that these popular fanfic writers are going to all become the new 50 Shades of Grey, and they're going to churn out fanfic turned romance. And a lot of these are very popular. As I understand correctly, Heated Rivalry was originally a fanfic based in the Avengers universe. And the big new dark fantasy coming out is a fanfic of Harry Potter. I've tried this, actually. I filed off the serial numbers of my Ashen Mermaid fanfic from the early days of the Evangelion fandom back in the 2010s, and I filed all the serial numbers off. I took everything copyrighted out of it. I changed the plot, and it became Mermaid Monday. I think Mermaid Monday is not as good as the fanfic was. My fanfic was very good. Mermaid Monday was very fun to write, and I wrote it more as a proof of concept. I don't think I'm not a success story like that. But I had fun with that, and I think Mermaid Monday turned out well. A lot of people have had a lot of success with this. And previously multi-chapter fan fiction was where the really creative romance was. The creative romance stories, the romantasy did kind of create itself out of the multi-chapter book-length fan fiction universes. I have sadly read some of these. I have read, I think it was called Court Records. It was a Phoenix Wright Yandere fan fiction about a stalker who tries to rape Phoenix Wright. And it was crazy. It's absolutely crazy fanfic. And I read that about a decade ago now. And so I know that those things exist. I know that they're very good, and filing off the serial numbers works very well. But there's obviously going to be a trend after that. The trend after that is going to be the people who are younger than the people who wrote those fics. And the people who are younger than that generation are my generation. And many of them are Tumblr girls who had role-play blogs, either when I did or after I did. And many of them had these universes that, there's nothing really connecting most of these universes back to the original fandom. When you get things that are so convoluted because the base universe is Danganronpa, and you've put Durarara on top of that, and then you've put Madoka Magica on top of that, then you've put Sailor Moon on top of that, and then on top of that you've put Death Note, and on top of that you've put The Melancholy of Haruhi Suzumiya, and on top of that you've put Naruto, and on top of that you put Urusei Yatsura. At that point, none of those, canon universes has any real impact on the story. At that point, the universe is so complicated that filing off the serial numbers would be very simple. And what you're left with is a homage to anime as a genre, or manga as a genre. You're going to get a lot of fairly generic Danganronpa or Madoka Magica clones. And of course, that's true for all romantasy. A lot of multi-chapter fanfics are pretty much the same thing over and over again, and that's why romance publishers really wanted to jump on them. And I think YA fantasy is probably, those publishers aren't going to care if they and all their competitors have Danganronpa with the serial numbers filed off, but there are magical girls and ghosts and whatnot. I don't think anybody's going to care. I don't think that's a deal breaker. I think that is just going to be an after effect of this. It is what it is. Um, Several people who I RP'd with at that time uh, have original character blogs now. They have their original universes. Many of them are very entwined with the anime tropes, anime story tropes. Um, I've talked to some of them about whether they write original fiction. One of them does. One of them does write his original fiction on Patreon, which started out as a universe based upon, I don't remember what it was originally based upon. The universe just kind of went in his own direction. And it's, crazy, it's a fun, crazy send up to the tropes of classic anime that our generation grew up with. And, I think, I think he's probably bound to get a book deal pretty soon. I think his Patreon does pretty well. A book deal, and that starts the ball rolling. I've got things out that were, anime, fanfic adjacent, roleplay universe adjacent, and then he will. And then it just keeps rolling, and eventually somebody's going to make it big. The law of averages states that one of us, probably not me, probably not my friend, probably not my other two friends who are still writing, but one of us is going to make it big. Some publisher is going to pick up, is either going to pitch to us, they're going to see one of these blogs, because some publishing intern is actually a Tumblrina, and they're going to see one of these blogs, or we're going to actually, get our shit together and write out a whole novel based on one of these role-play blog combination universes. And, I am a scrupulous person. My, great authors steal, good authors steal everything, or whatever. I'm not going to steal any of my friends' world building. I'm not going to steal any of their universes. We are working with a lot of the same tropes. My short story, Multiversal Magical Robot Multiversal Twins, was published in the Kraken lore a few months ago, and my friend said, "Oh yeah, that's very similar to the story I'm working on." So I think you're going to get a lot of people who, in fantasy, science fantasy, specifically steampunk, science fantasy, solar punk, cyberpunk, diesel punk, that started out in these kind of magical girl, mech pilot, role-play servers, Tumblr blog universes. I think there are going to be a lot of us appearing over the next, 10, 15 years. And then we're going to get overshadowed by whatever the new shiny thing is. So this is the season finale of this season of Short and Nerdy Nonfiction. If you're interested in this, go back to my channel, watch the other episodes, like and subscribe, whatever. And if you really want to support me, buy one of my books. Buy Mermaid Monday, buy my collection of YA fantasy, listen to some of my music. It's all on YouTube.